A creature with the weight of 2 people once flew into the sky, and it ruled the heavens for a full 17 million years. If you looked up at the Earth 70 million years ago, what you saw wasn't the blue sky at all, but a massive moving shadow. That wasn't a cloud. It was a creature with a wingspan longer than a bus, gliding 200 meters above your head, like a passing ghost. It is called Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying creature humanity has ever known. But here is a question that drives every engineer crazy. According to the laws of physics, this thing simply should not exist. With an 11-meter wingspan, it stood taller than a giraffe, yet it weighed only 250 kilograms. That is equivalent to 3 adults, roughly the weight of 2 Leon Z. What does that mean? It's like folding a paper plane out of a 4 paper and telling someone it can carry you across the Pacific Ocean. Absurd, right? But that's exactly what Quetzalcoatlus did. How thin were its bones? The wall thickness of its long bones was less than 1 millimeter, more fragile than your smartphone screen. In 2019, paleontologists used CT scans on its fossils and discovered an even crazier fact. Its bones were not solid inside, nor were they simple hollow tubes. Instead, they featured a truss structure that humans didn't invent until the 21st century, the high-end stuff used in space shuttles and F1 racing cars. Nature had already mastered modern materials science 70 million years ago. But what truly silenced scientists wasn't how light it was, but how it took off. You might think flying creatures need a running start to take off. Wrong. Birds need to run. Bats need to jump. And even a Boeing 747 has to taxi for several kilometers. But Quetzalcoatlus didn't need any of that. It took off from a standstill. More accurately, it launched itself like a cannonball. In 2016, biomechanists finally cracked the secret of its takeoff. This process was named the quadrupedal launch mechanism. With all 4 limbs on the ground, the forelimbs would explode with power, acting like a vaulting pole, catapulting its body 3 meters into the air. Then, in that split second of suspension, its 11-meter wings fully unfurled, taking flight immediately. The entire process took less than 5 seconds. Calculations show that the power output in that instant was equivalent to a small car, accelerating from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. For a creature so fragile that you could poke a hole through it with a finger, its explosive power rivaled a race car. This is the most eerie thing about Quetzalcoatlus. It was both fragile and incredibly strong. It got even more absurd once it was in the air. It almost never flapped its wings, because its wings weren't built for flapping. They were built for leverage. The 11-meter wingspan combined with its narrow shape, a design known professionally as high aspect ratio, allowed it to simply find an updraft, to stay aloft like it had a cheat code, soaring for hundreds of kilometers without landing. Imagine a creature 4 stories high, gliding silently above you, not making a sound, without even moving its wings. This image is more terrifying than any horror movie. But here comes the most perception-shattering part of the story. This ruler of the skies actually didn't like flying. In 2020, research on fossil footprints completely rewrote our understanding of it. Scientists discovered that the density of Quetzalcoatlus's walking tracks far exceeded its flight fossil records. What does this mean? It means it spent most of its time walking on the ground. A creature that could fly chose to walk, because its true killing blow wasn't in the sky, but on the ground. Standing up, Quetzalcoatlus was over 4 meters tall, with a straight neck and a 2-meter-long skull. When it was on all 4s, walking on those long, vertically standing legs, it looked like a mobile tower crane. It didn't need to chase its prey, because its field of vision covered dozens of meters. Small dinosaurs and mammals, barely a meter high, were nothing more than insects in the grass to it. Its hunting method was extremely simple. Stand still and wait for prey to approach, then snap its beak down violently, clamping and swallowing in one motion. The entire process took less than 0.8 seconds faster than a blink of an eye. And its neck had a bizarre design. Most long-necked animals have very flexible necks, but the middle section of Quetzalcoatlus's neck was almost entirely rigid. Only the parts near the head and the body could move. Why? Because it evolved its neck into a rigid rod, specifically to withstand violent impacts. This wasn't just a flying bird. It was a crane with wings. So, Quetzalcoatlus's real way of life was walking kilometers on the ground to hunt, eating its fill, catapulting into the air, flying to the next hunting ground, landing, and continuing to walk. Flying wasn't a lifestyle for it. It was just a commute. This design was too perfect. So perfect it's unsettling. Because perfection means having no room for error. Quetzalcoatlus put all its stat points into extreme gliding and ground hunting. It sacrificed skeletal strength for flight, reproduction speed for body size, and adaptability for efficiency. It was like a gambler who bet all his chips on a single card, betting that the climate of the late Cretaceous would always be stable, food would always be plentiful, and updrafts would always exist. It won that bet for 17 million years. Until 66 million years ago, when that 10-kilometer diameter asteroid struck the Gulf of Mexico. The sky was choked with dust, temperatures plummeted, and updrafts vanished. Quetzalcoatlus lost the gliding ability it relied on for survival. Even more fatal was, sunlight was blocked for as long as 3 years. Plants died off in massive numbers. The food chain fractured from the bottom up. A massive species that only ate meat and bred slowly had no room for survival in this kind of environment. Fossil records show that within just a few thousand years of the asteroid impact, Quetzalcoatlus completely vanished. While those who hid in burrows and ate anything, small mammals that bred quickly, which is to say, our ancestors survived. So you see, Quetzalcoatlus didn't lose to the meteorite, but to its own perfection. It designed itself to the ultimate extreme, so extreme that it couldn't tolerate a single mishap. When the environment changed, it didn't even have a chance to adjust. This makes me think of a very cruel truth. On the gambling table of evolution, it is never the strongest that wins, but the one most capable of adapting to change. Quetzalcoatlus ruled the skies for 17 million years, but ultimately, those who took over the sky were those seemingly unremarkable little birds. Humans were able to make it to today, not because we were more powerful than Quetzalcoatlus, but because our ancestors were mediocre enough and tenacious enough. The sky that was once covered by giant shadows was only left to us because they made their exit. Some of the dead are destined to be lonely, destined to fall, but the traces of their existence will forever remind us of one principle. On this planet, perfection is never the optimal solution for survival. Only by leaving room for error can one go further. You think the strongest creature of the Cretaceous was the T-Rex. You're wrong. Dead wrong. Completely incorrect. Fundamentally wrong. If the 79 million years of the Cretaceous were compressed into one day, the T-Rex didn't even show up until the last 36 minutes. It only ruled for those final 36 minutes. So in the 23 hours and 24 minutes before it appeared, what was the Cretaceous actually going through? The true ruler of this continent wasn't giant teeth or sharp claws. It was a flower. This thing you see everywhere that couldn't be more ordinary. Almost no one has ever considered that it is actually the most terrifying game changer in Earth's history. Before the Cretaceous, there were no flowers on Earth at all. There were only conifers and ferns, low energy and hard to digest. Until the mid-Cretaceous, when flowers appeared, food appeared, and sugar appeared. Earth's food chain was completely reprogrammed. Plants became more fragrant, sweeter, and higher in nutrition. Insects surged, and biodiversity exploded. Land ecology entered an unprecedented golden age. Generation after generation of top predators took the stage. ancestors of Acrocanthosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, and Zeuxanthorhinus, each one more fierce than the last. Without this flower, there would be no golden age of the Cretaceous. No mammal ancestors that later survived on fruit, and certainly none of today's grains, fruits, vegetables, or seeds of flowers. The T-Rex was just a final overlord of the Cretaceous, but the flower was the true creator that defined the entire era. Today, in the 12th episode of our Earth General Knowledge series, I will take you to truly understand the Cretaceous. That was Earth from 145 million to 66 million years ago. A full 79 million years. 500 times longer than humans have been on Earth. Scientists gave it a beautiful name, the last golden age of the Mesozoic. But I prefer to call it another name, the most brutal, most insane, and most suffocating survival arena in Earth's history. First, let's talk about the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide levels in the Cretaceous were more than 4 times what they are today. Every breath you took felt like having a wet towel covering your face while gasping for air in a sauna. Suffocating, sweltering, and toxic. Sea levels then were 170 meters higher than today. More than half of North America was underwater. Surface temperatures could soar to 45 degrees Celsius. Just as you stepped out from the sunlight, before you could even find shade, volcanoes would start erupting. Volcanic ash would blot out the sun. Temperatures would plummet. You'd experience extreme heat and drastic shifts in the same day. Yet it was precisely under these extreme conditions that life exploded with unprecedented diversity. This is the most fascinating part of nature. The more desperate the situation, the more extraordinary the flowers that bloom. First, look at the sky. The Cretaceous sky did not belong to birds. It belonged to pterosaurs, the pinnacle of which was Quetzalcoatlus. Its wingspan reached 11 meters, equivalent to the size of a monoplane fighter jet. When it stood on the ground, it was nearly 6 meters tall, taller than a giraffe. What did it feel like when it flew? Imagine you are walking in the wild without any cover, and suddenly a shadow, longer than a bus, appears in the sky, gliding silently over your head. The prey of Quetzalcoatlus consisted of medium-sized animals and small dinosaurs larger than a human. When it dove down, it wasn't just hunting. It was harvesting. Now look at the land. Many people think the peak of dinosaurs was the Tyrannosaurs, but South America in the Cretaceous hid an existence that made the T-Rex seem petite. Argentinosaurus, 35 meters long, 80 tons in weight, equivalent to about a dozen African elephants. It was one of the largest land animals in Earth's history. The vibration of its footsteps could be felt for kilometers. Just a single femur bone was taller than an adult human. But don't think that being huge meant being safe. What evolved specifically to deal with it was Giganotosaurus, 13 meters long, 6 tons in weight with serrated teeth that were constantly replaced throughout its life. They may have moved in groups and might have even hunted Argentinosaurus together. If a pack of Giganotosaurus were to besiege an Argentinosaurus, that wouldn't be hunting. It would be a war in every sense of the word. Having finished with South America, let's return to North America to talk about the existence whose name echoes globally. Tyrannosaurus rex, 13 meters in length, with a bite force of about 57,000 newtons. What does this number mean? With a single bite, it can bite straight through bone, shattering it and piercing the roof of an off-road vehicle. What's even more terrifying than its mouth is its sense of smell. The T-Rex's sense of smell was extremely developed, capable of pinpointing a scent from over a kilometer away. It was sharper than a hound's. You might think you're safe hiding in the bush because it can't see you, but it has already smelled you. If the T-Rex was the ultimate disaster on land, then the water was a true literal hell. During the Cretaceous period, a shallow sea called the Western Interior Seaway cut across the entire North American continent. Paleontologists gave this sea a nickname, the Hell's Aquarium. The fiercest creature in the sea was the Mosasaurus. The largest reliable specimens were around 15 meters long, weighing over 10 tons. Its bite force was incredibly strong, far exceeding that of modern saltwater crocodiles. It possessed binocular vision, allowing it to precisely lock on the prey in murky waters. A great white shark would be just a small snack in its presence. But in this sea, even a Mosasaurus could be eaten by a larger member of its own kind. Then there was the Plesiosaur, long neck, small head, and a flat body, using 4 massive flippers to fly through the water. One type called Elasmosaurus had an extremely long neck, making up over half its body length. The number of its cervical vertebrae was immense. They weren't reckless pursuers. They would use that eerie long neck to mimic seaweed, quietly and slowly approaching schools of fish, and then striking like lightning. Interestingly, many paleontology enthusiasts believe that the legend of Scotland's Loch Ness Monster was inspired by plesiosaur fossils. They have been gone for over 60 million years, yet they live on forever in human mythology. After talking about the ones that frighten you at first sight, let's talk about one you definitely didn't expect. In the Cretaceous, there was a herbivorous dinosaur called Parasaurolophus. It had a long, curved, bony crest on its head, which from a distance looked like a banana stuck on its forehead. This thing looked strange, but scientists discovered that the crest was hollow. Inside, it had an extremely complex airway structure. It could produce low-frequency resonant sounds. Listen to this sound. Doesn't it sound like a natural horn? Can you imagine it? A herd of Parasaurolophus calling out in unison in the evening forest. That deep, lingering resonance penetrating the trees, vibrating the ground. The Cretaceous world was not silent. It had sound. It had language. It even had music. 66 million years ago, an asteroid about 10 kilometers in diameter hit the Earth at a speed of about 20 kilometers per second. The impact site was what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The energy released at the moment of impact was equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. Shock waves, ultra-high temperature flames, and giant tsunamis swept the globe in succession. This was followed by a long impact winter. Dust covered the sky and blocked out the sun. The Earth's surface fell into years of darkness and extreme cold. Plants died on a massive scale. Herbivores ran out of food, and the carnivores followed in collapse. About 75% of the species on Earth disappeared forever in this extinction event. The 79 million year Cretaceous period ended just like that. The Cretaceous period used its 79 million years to teach us the most shocking lesson. Those giants that once ruled the Earth were ultimately no match for a meteorite falling from the sky. No matter how powerful the body or how sharp the claws and teeth, they were all fragile in the face of an era's changing. What truly rewrites history has never been violence or hegemony, but silent forces capable of reshaping the entire world. It is the ecological revolution brought by a flower, the persistence of tiny lives enduring the darkness, and the resilience of life constantly restarting amidst destruction. The dinosaurs disappeared, but their bloodline transformed into birds, still soaring in the sky today. Extinction is never the end, but rather life moving forward in a different way. As we look up at the stars today and look back at ancient times, it's not just to marvel at former giants, but to understand. True strength is not about conquering for a moment, but about holding on to hope and continuing to grow through endless time. The greatest power of life is never about never falling, but being able to fly again after the fall. In the next episode, I will take you to the Paleogene, a strange new world of giants, where birds are taller than men and snakes can swallow cattle. This is Science Creator. Looking forward to seeing you next time.